Where do we come from? Where are our roots? And how did we come about? If you're religious, the answer is probably obvious to you. But what if I told you that there is a creation story that is significantly older than the one in the Bible? And we're not just talking about a few centuries here, but tens of thousands of years. And what if the major world religions simply took up this creation story later and changed it? There are people who don't want you to watch this video because it breaks with the prevailing views. Thou shalt not know that Adam was not the first man. The book of Genesis states, "And God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him, male and female, created he them." And further, "Then the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. So man became a living being." The situation is very similar in the Quran. We read in Surah 23, "We created man from an extract of clay." Now, it is in the nature of things that less religious people cannot make much sense of such creation myths. The idea that man emerged from a lump of earth to which the divine breath of life was then breathed seems too unimaginable. Zecharia Sitchin was also one of those people who rejected the biblical story of creation. However, this does not mean that the American was an advocate of the current theory of evolution. Quite the opposite. If you like, the writer's views were even more controversial than the doctrines held by the church. Sitchin belonged to a circle known for its, well, let's say alternative views. Born in Baku on July 11, 1920, and died in New York on October 9, 2010, Sitchin was a fervent advocate of pre-astronautics. A brief reminder, this parascience is based on the assumption that ancient humans were regularly visited by extraterrestrial intelligences. However, as the inhabitants of Earth simply could not explain the futuristic technologies of their strange guests, they were simply worshipped as gods in return. Zecharia Sitchin, however, took this controversial starting point to a completely different level. In his book, The 12th Planet, which was published in 1976, the author put forth a hypothesis that there is another planet beyond Neptune, unknown to mankind. This planet goes by the name of Nibiru, and on its long elliptical orbit, the celestial body dips into our solar system approximately every 3,600 years. Well, that sounds all well and good, but what does an unknown planet have to do with Earth and humanity? Well, quite simply, if you follow Sitchin's thoughts, we and our home planet would not exist at all without Nibiru. What the Sumerians reveal about aliens. Well, in the Old Testament, it is God who created the heaven and earth in the beginning. In the 12th planet, it is a momentous collision that paved the way for our earthly home. According to the story, Nibiru once collided with Tiamat, another planet that is said to have been located between Mars and Jupiter. However, this galactic crash not only gave rise to our Earth, but also the asteroid belt and comets. To put it mildly, this theory sounds a little far-fetched, but Sitchin was of the opinion that it could be backed up with solid evidence. Evidence that we find in the oldest known creation story. To understand what this is all about, we need to take a look at the legendary Sumerian clay tablets. It is well known that these ancient relics are adorned with one of the Sumerians' greatest milestones. Cuneiform. Discovered over 100 years ago in what is now Iraq, these artifacts are estimated to be 3,700 years old. You've probably heard the word Anunnaki before, and to break it down, this is the term used by the Sumerians to describe aliens. Zecharia Sitchin was convinced of this. According to Sitchin, what conservative research interprets as mythological deities were extraterrestrial beings that miraculously descended from heaven to earth. In fact, both mythology and pre-astronautics share one and the same principle. The Anunnaki were creatures that came from the heavens. According to Sitchin, these beings did not come to Earth by chance. They visited our homeland to mine valuable raw materials. And as you can probably guess, the origin of these creatures was on the ominous 12th planet, Nibiru. While this alien race was basically human-like, they had achieved a level of technological advancement that we can't even dream of today. Interesting to know, Sitchin claims that the Anunnaki are also mentioned in the Bible. However, they are referred to as the Nephilim. While this term is translated as sons of God in German, the 6th chapter of Genesis states, "There were giants in those days, and also afterward on the earth. For when the sons of God went into the daughters of men, and they bore them children, they became giants." In the 13th chapter of Genesis, it again becomes clear that the descendants of the Anunnaki created chaos on earth. The land we passed through is devouring its inhabitants, and all we saw in it were people of tall stature. We also saw giants there, Anuk's sons from the race of giants. And in our eyes we were as small as grasshoppers, and so we were in their eyes. Man was created as a slave. While the Nephilim are otherwise not mentioned in the official Bible, we learn in the Apocrypha what fate ultimately befell them. In the book of Enoch, for example, it is written that God wiped out the giants with a devastating flood and also destroyed their fathers. According to Sitchin, however, the story of these creatures was somewhat different. In detail, the Anunnaki once flourished on Nibiru, when the planet was in the inner solar system. 450,000 years before our time, the aliens then discovered valuable raw materials, especially gold, on Earth. The Nibiru inhabitants sent some of their members to the Blue Planet in order to acquire these treasures. Sitchin explained that these supposed deities were in fact nothing more than simple laborers. However, as the mining of the gold was more difficult than expected, and because some of the Anunnaki had already mutinied, one of the aliens had a clever idea. According to Sitchin, Enki, the Sumerian god of water and human culture, suggested creating primitive workers to relieve the Anunnaki. Contrary to what is described in the Holy Scriptures, however, this was not done through a divine creation, but with the help of futuristic genetic engineering. In detail, humans were created by the aliens, crossing extraterrestrial genes with those of Homo erectus. A well-daring thesis, but according to Sitchin, it can be proven by ancient inscriptions. However, this was by no means the only source that the controversial author consulted. Conventional science also has its problems with the official history of human development. Here is an excerpt from the 12th planet. The real puzzle is not the backwardness of our ancestors, but our own progressiveness. It took humans 2 million years to figure out that stone tools work better if you shape and sharpen them. So why didn't it take us another 2 million years to learn how to use other materials, and not another 10 million years to master math, engineering, and astronomy? Now here we are, not even 50,000 years after Neanderthals, and we have put humans on the moon. The obvious question is, did we and our ancient ancestors really make the leap to advanced civilization on our own? For Sitchin, the mysterious emergence and rapid development of Homo sapiens can only be explained in one way. We didn't evolve according to the theory of evolution. We were bred. And the Garden of Eden described in the Bible was in fact the scene of extraterrestrial genetic experiments, a conviction that would also coincide with some of the mysteries of our genetic makeup. Accordingly, the interbreeding hypothesis would explain why the human genome consists of more than 98% non-coding DNA. Where are the aliens today? However, Sitchin's explanations also have a huge problem, because they sometimes raise more questions than they provide answers. If humans really were created by an extraterrestrial species as labor slaves, why aren't we free today? And above all, why is there no trace of our extraterrestrial creators? Well, one thing at a time. According to Sitchin, ancient writings report that the supposed gods introduced human kinship. From then on, this was to act as a mediator between humanity and the Anunnaki. In this way, the doctrine of the divine right of kings was established, which lasted for thousands of years. To understand what happened next, we need to take another look at the fate of the city Ur. As one of the oldest Sumerian cities, the beginnings of Ur date back to 4000 BC. However, some records speak of an evil wind that destroyed the city around the year 2000 BC. According to Sitchin, however, this is merely a metaphor describing radioactive precipitation. In fact, the Anunnaki are said to have fallen out with each other to such an extent that their conflict escalated into a devastating nuclear war. As a result, The slave yoke was taken from humanity, and the aliens retreated into the vastness of space. Oh, and of course the governments and modern scientists would know all about it. However, they are also aware of another fact. If they succeed in robbing humans of the knowledge of their origin and thus their true identity, then they will also be able to manipulate them in all other conceivable ways. Press subscribe to never miss an exciting video again.